This is Richard Campbell from Run As Radio coming to you from the Fishbowl at TechEd IT Week 2008 in Orlando. It's the end of TechEd, late on the Friday afternoon. I'm talking to Joel Silver. Hi, Joel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How was your TechEd?
It was excellent. It's a lot of good sessions here, a lot of great content. I just did a chalk talk a little while ago. Very, very nice. A lot of great questions, good conversations.
So you work for Microsoft?
Yes.
And what's your role?
I work for Microsoft. I'm a system engineer. My primary responsibilities are around the MIIS or ILM 2007 corporate environment. I manage ILM in the corporate environment.
And ILM is Identity Life Management? Or?
Identity Lifecycle Manager.
Right.
And one of the main things that we use that for is GalSync. So we take user object information, HR information, join all that up, populate that into the various exchange organizations, and update user information. We also create contacts in the other locations where there need to be contacts. Our environment is fairly complex.
Microsoft's a big operation. It's 100,000 plus people now.
That's right. We have about 140,000 user objects,
wow.
About 500,000 machine objects, and we quickly learned that managing these things either manually or by script became very, very difficult. We couldn't certainly scale out, adding more people and more people. We wanted to automate a lot of these processes.
Right.
So MIIS, or now ILM, is what we use to automate GalSync, HR, some base provisioning also, OCS, integration in our different forests.
Right. Well, and of course, it's Microsoft's policy to take their technology out for a spin whenever it comes along. So I'm thinking OCS, which is a relatively new product for Microsoft, can't be that tightly integrated with the existing infrastructure. So it's part of the challenge is how do I get all that OCS data to be part of those global address lists, so that all of the exchange data that's out there, all of those Active Directory objects. It's got to be quite a challenge.
That's right. It is challenging. We've created a lot of special processes and put special processes in place to allow us to have a simpler environment,
right,
but also leverage the automation that we've got. We have OCS hosted in one forest.
Right.
So those servers are in one forest, but somebody might have a user object in a different forest. So we have to let OCS know where their logon account is, and we use MIIS to do that. So MIIS says, oh, your logon account is in forest B. I need to take your SID information, populated in forest where OCS is, so you can communicate with everyone else.
Interesting.
So processes that we've created using ILM, using data feeds that do the calculations on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
We sync that information in and sync that information out to allow everybody to collaborate.
And it's got to be crazier. I know, talking to some other folks that work at Microsoft, they're actually on betas of some new products, and they're isolated in their own forest, and you've got to somehow feed that in as well.
Right. So depending on the forest, we update Active Directory information
mm-hmm.
for those users. Some of those forests can be out of scope if they're using beta products.
Right.
A good example of a beta forest that we do support is for Exchange.
Oh, interesting.
So we have our corporate environment that is kind of the release stuff, the stable stuff.
Must work every day kind of thing.
Right. For people who maybe don't care about new and interesting products, they want to do HR stuff, or they want to do marketing or
right.
something like
they
that.
They just want to be able to get their email.
Right. And then we'll have a +1 forest where people will have the latest version of Exchange, the
right.
latest stuff. They're dog fooding that stuff
sure.
in their own environment. But there's still that need for them to collaborate with people in the rest of the environment, in the rest of the corporation.
Of course.
So MIIS, ILM is in the middle of that, populating that GAL information, populating new feature information that we might have asked for them that they might want us to do. So we enable them to dog food their products while we're still collaborating with the rest of the company. So we kind of, as the identity management team or the IAM team, we sit in the middle of that. We consolidate all of that information, and then we manipulate it and put it out.
So you're going to end up building a certain number of tools for yourself. I mean, it makes sense that anytime you've got to do something more than once, you want to automate it to some degree. And I mean, part of this whole dog fooding process was to make the product better. Do you find that eventually you're carrying these tools back to the product teams to say, here's how we've automated this, and that
mm-hmm.
eventually adds to the product itself?
Yeah, we've actually created a lot of tools to make and manage things in the Active Directory better.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some custom solutions, and it's funny. I've been working on this recently as we've been deploying the newer versions of ILM. We're working on ILM Beta 3, and we have to interface with some of our custom tools. And the problem with interfacing with those custom tools is somebody created it way back when.
Right.
Nobody knows exactly how it works, or the thing that we need to use doesn't work quite right, or they're using something custom.
Right.
Nobody knows how it works. So I've been trying to get these two systems to work together so we can slowly turn one off and slowly turn one on.
Right.
But interfacing with that custom tool is the hard part, and that's the thing that we created to
Right.
solve a problem.
I mean, it's nice to hear very ordinary development challenges that happen inside of Microsoft. The same things happen in any other organization where somebody says, oh, I've got a way to fix that, rattles it together, no documentation, maybe no project, like you can't even find the original source, but you've come to rely on this thing that's just kind of an orphan.
That's right.
And eventually you have to roll that back out again and get into something more standardized.
That's right, and it's been a big push of ours to work on release products. We want to have the entire organization working on release products and
Sure.
get rid of as much custom code and get rid of all those custom tools. So right now I'm working on ILM to create the workflows, create all of the flows and processes that are necessary to replace tools like for group management, for user account management. I was talking to somebody just a little bit ago about machine lifecycle.
Right.
At Microsoft, whenever you bring up your new machine, you create put the operating system on there, you join it to the domain, you create a machine account.
Right.
Well, you know, a week later you might go, you know what, I don't like that machine name anymore. I'm going to name it something else. All of a sudden, you've abandoned a machine account.
Right.
And we were talking earlier, we've got 500,000 of these things.
Wow. And it's not that you have 500,000 machines, it's that you have 500,000 machine names.
Right, machine accounts.
Yeah.
So these are identities, and if we left them alone, we'd get this enormous
It
bloat.
would just keep on growing.
So we report on this information, and I see 30% of these things being abandoned over the course of the month.
Wow.
So it's a
that
tremendous
many.
amount, yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, and of course, names are going to get abandoned as machines are retired or
Sure.
ultimately fail. But it's, like I said, just a renaming is going to leave a name behind.
We don't have a sense of which ones are abandoned and which ones are a lab went down and they're redoing it.
Right.
It's a combination of all that stuff.
It could,
but
it could literally be down for months.
Right.
And before it gets used again. And goodness knows you may put a machine on the shelf and not spin it up again for a year. But when it does, you still want that machine name to be there.
Right. So what happens is if you put the machine on the shelf for a year, we actually have some logic that says if it's older than 30 days, we clean it up once every month. So that machine account's going to get deleted.
Right.
So
You're going to have to reestablish yourself with the domain all over again.
right. So we do a lot of lifecycle management around that. Otherwise, we would just get this enormous bloat.
Tremendous
It would be a
blow.
mess.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's just interesting to think in the scale and like you said, these very ordinary problems that every company has. Just because you're Microsoft doesn't mean you're exempt
Right.
from dealing with those sorts of issues. So what's it like now? I mean, are you taking advantage of Core? Have you built independent AD machines that are like light as thin as possible? How has Microsoft gone into Active Directory?
At the infrastructure level, we have a large number of domain controllers. Primarily, what I do is around the data layer, and
It's interesting. It's just that it's not about the basic concepts of logging in and so forth, but all of these apps.
right, we actually have a whole other team that works on the infrastructure itself. I work on the data, the lifecycle management of
Right.
that data, how we manage that data. Have not spent a lot of time doing setting up systems like that or doing lightweight systems. I do set up test systems to test a lot of the things that we're talking about. I've been working on a test system just recently to prototype, the new ILM provisioning rules, the new ILM code, the new rules that we're using to try and create groups and work with our current infrastructure. So we prototype that in a test environment and then put it into production.
Sure.
Currently we have beta 2 in production, and within the next few weeks we're going to have a beta 3 in production. So we're starting to fill the gap where we've got all our custom rules that we need to put in place, and that's where we're starting.
Well, and it just seems like, not only the potential to build tools that ultimately become products, but all of those practices and procedures are sort of the best route to go about this, at least at the scale that Microsoft is at, to manage that many different objects.
Right. So we definitely make mistakes too.
Sure.
So we learn over time. So Some of those things I've talked about, custom applications, we've learned that custom applications are bad. So we're going to learn what rules to create or how to do these workflows, and we're going to learn what's bad.
Right.
We're going to learn what's good, and hopefully I can bring that back to everybody else and show them, we've done these bad things.
Sure.
Here are the good things we've done, and hopefully we don't end up with legacy bad things in place. There's a lot of work to do to get us to that point, but we put all that feedback into the product. I try and take all that feedback that I get from other people and give that to them. They give that to me, and like you were saying, we have the same problems that everyone else does.
Any other company that size.
Everybody manages groups. Everybody has problems managing those. Some people do it manually. Some people don't. Some people want a tool, but they don't know how to go about it.
Right.
So
but I got to imagine, like, sometimes custom apps are necessary, but I guess your experience has now shown the bar you have to set to justify a custom app has to be higher. We can't do it for fun. It's well worth looking for an existing tool, well worth living with some limitations to try and mitigate the costs around custom applications.
Oh yeah, and in some cases, we'll use native tools, or maybe not the most efficient thing to do, but we want to use something that's not customized because somebody would not be able to support it, or it would cost a lot of money to support and to create. Policies and things like that, we want to make sure that we have the right thing in place that anybody could sit down and do that again. We don't want to have like that example I was giving where nobody even knows how this thing works, and I've been working for the last couple weeks trying to figure this thing out, and we're going to probably create some new hosted instance of it just to make it work, which is for retiring it, that's fine, but for a long-term solution, that's definitely
you can't stay like that. Well, Joel, it was really interesting to see what Microsoft's doing with their own products and that sort of evolution of trying stuff out, and it comes back to the products. It's very exciting. Thanks for coming on and telling us about it.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Great.